Hi guys, this is Joseph right here and welcome to this video. I want to use this medium to invite you to check out my course on Skillshare, Woodwork and Furniture Design with Cinema 4D. It's a course with over 2 hours of content where we look at a lot of modeling techniques, camera setup, lights, and basic UV unwrapping. I even gave a bonus video of adding details to the design using Cinema 4D air system, which is what this video is all about. So I decided to recreate a video here on YouTube showing how to add details to the cushion using the hair system in Cinema 4D. So if you look at what we have right here, I have this hair object, this furniture, and if I zoom in closely, you can see that I have some detail in this furniture design. So that is what this video is going to be about. So to get the full course, I'll put a link in the description below. So without wasting any more of your time, let's get to this video. Okay guys, so this is basically what I have in the scene. So you can see that I have my furniture designed and I have a camera set up for that. So it's just a very simple scene, and I have a backdrop which I'm going to which I'm just holding to get back those information from here. So if you look at this now and I create a quick render from here, you will tell and see that all my lights set up, everything are all set, and then we shouldn't have any issue. And from there we just go into the system and then continue on with what we want to do. Okay, so you can see that this guy is coming out. So you can see this is just basically what I have. If you look at it very well, you notice that the contour of this guy is really perfect, and you don't get to have all those hair object around it, which is why this video is here. So I'm going to stop this and let's start. So I'll go out of my camera for a moment so that I can see what I want to do. Let me just hide this so it doesn't distract my view. So I'll select the object that I want to add. So I'm going to use this for the illustration. So I'll select this cushion object. So you notice I have this. This is the object I want to add this stuff. So by the way, this model, I downloaded this model on online. So you can just go to google.com and just search for furniture designs, and you will see free furniture designs to work on. So once I have this object selected, I will go into my simulate tab, then go to the hair object. So I'll just draw this open. So I'm going to bring the hair object into this guy. Once I put that, it's going to add this hair object, and everything is just going to be so much. And then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce I'll go to the hair object, select it, and I go to the attributes manager. I'll go to the tab, the guide tab. First thing is I will bring the length down, just really bring it down, and so that I have something to work with. And also I'm going to leave it as is now, just to use it to illustrate before I now start bringing it to the actual length. Then the next thing, I'm going to go to the root type, change it from polygon vertex to polygon area. So it's going to scatter it around all the objects. So by the way, once you put this and you change this to anything and it doesn't work, what you can do is just come to your editing, you reroute, then you regrow. It's going to refresh everything. And then the other thing I'm also going to do is, the count is really large, it's really too much. I'll just reduce this count to like let's say 2. Yeah. And the reason why I'm making it 2 is so that I can explain to you. You will see the next steps. You will see the effect on this before we start bringing it to the number of counts we want. Okay, so another thing is, go to my dynamics. I'm going to turn off my dynamics because I don't need a dynamics here. I'm not doing any animation, so I don't want any calculations for that. Then I'll go to my hair tab. You notice for the hair tab we have 50 5,000 counts, but for the guide we have 2 counts. And this is really important because the guide is just showing you in the viewport, but by the time I hit render, it's going to actually render out the hair object. So you need to also note that. So I'll leave this as 2 also. And you notice for the segment for the hair is 12, and that for the guide is 8. So you are going to see what the segment is. The segment actually gives you detail by the time we start adding modifiers to it, start changing this, modifying this air object. So as soon as you drop an air object into the scene, it's going to create the air material for you and put the air material on top of the air object. And this air material is what allows you to render up this hair. All right. So notice if I deselect this object, you notice what's happening is showing me the guide. And I don't want to see the guide. The reason is because by the time I start modifying this material, the material doesn't get, it doesn't really affect the guide. What it affects is the hair. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to the hair object, go into the editor, and I'll say my display preview. I want to change it from guideline to hairlines. As soon as I do that, if I go out, you notice I have the hair. And then whatever I'm doing now will be having effect on this guy. So let's look at the first thing we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is to go into the hair material object, and we can start changing. So the first change we notice here is the color. We'll get to this color in a moment. Other thing is you have your specular. So the specular is what allows you make your object have reflection. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to turn off the reflection. I don't need any form of reflection. Then I have thickness. So the thickness, from what it says, determine how thick your object is. So if I go into this render setting and I try to render out this part, you're going to see what I'm going to have is going to render out this hair. I can use my region to just render only this part. You notice that this hair is really thick, and if I go into my camera and let's see, you can see that even from this view is really thick. All right, so let's start working on the thickness. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a moment and come to the thickness. I can bring the thickness down. So the thickness is, you notice for the roots we have 1 centimeter, and for the tip we have 0.1, and you can already see from here, this is the root and this is the tip. So this is 1 centimeter, 0.1. So I'll come here because I want this is just a strand of cotton, so it's consistent. And I also want it to be really thin, so I'll just say 0.05 to start with, and come to the tip also 0.05. And let's see what this gives us. Once we render that, you're going to see that it's going to really make it really thin. You can see that this hairline is now thin, and you get to. So if I select this scene and try to put in the light material, just so we can see the hair, you can see what's happening, that this guy is really thin. Okay, so I think I like that. So the next thing I'm going to look at is to look at the frizz and kink. But before I even come to the frizz and kink, I want to coil this air. I want to create a coily feel. And for me to create that coily feel, you would think that you would do that in the coil, really, but no. Coil will not give you that coily feel like an helix. All right, so that's what I'm talking about, an helix kind of coily feel. But for me to get that coily feel, I will do that in my wave channel. So if I go to the wave channel, then I have the wave percentage and the variation. So what I want to really change is the X scale and the Y scale. So if I come to the X scale and I crank this really up, you notice as soon as I activate that, I'm beginning to get a little bit of coil, but I'm not really having it. It's not really intense. So if I bring this to like 1000 and do the same thing for the Y 1000, you're going to see what's happening, and it's really coils this, and notice it brings this down. And the reason is because the higher the value and the more coily it gets, and also the you know, once this thing coils, it comes down a little bit. Then that brings us back to the segment I was talking about. The detail, the way, the smoothness of the coil will be determined by the segment here. So right now the segment is at 12, so you don't really get that coily effect. But if I cramp this up to, like, let's say 50, I'm going to get the coil, and the coil is going to really give me, you can see that there's a quite difference in this coil than I had before. So that is what this segment is used for. So the next thing I'm going to do is, you will think that this is really coily, because if I come here and I try to orbit, you can even see it in the scene. So let me just even stop this render so that because of speed purpose, if I orbit a little bit into this air, you will notice that the coily effect you are even seeing is a one-dimensional sort of coil, and you don't get to have that coil more, you can see. All right, so we can also further add more detail to this coil by going into the advanced section. Then for the advanced section, what we just need to do is to change one of the face by 90 degrees. So if I change this to like 90 degrees, either X or Y, it's going to change and add a lot of detail to it. See what happens by changing it. Just look at what you are looking for, the view, and that will give you what you want. So let's try and change for the Y and see again. You notice the direction is calling that. So you just look at what you want. All right. So what I can also do is I can use this curve to change the art direct the way I want this coil to go. So for my coil X, if I move this, don't forget this is the root and this is the tip. So if I come here and move this, you notice what's happening. So the more I'm bringing this, the more it's bringing it down. It's reducing this effect. You can see that. And if I bring this one down, it's more like I'm pushing the tip back up. All right. So you have that option too. And if I bring this to this side, so just have a play with this curve to get the kind of feel you are looking for. So I'll do the same thing for this X and do this also. So maybe I'll bring this down to make it really go up for the X. All right. Now, this is the base. So once I'm done with this base, I can now start adding a little bit of roughness to it. If I feel that I want this to still go up more, I can still come to this wave X and just maybe bring this to 800 by 800. It's going to even push it even more up. Then once I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to do is now come to my freeze. So once I add freeze, what freeze does is it add randomization to this, more like it's scattering the whole thing. So we can come here and also start changing the curve and till you are okay with whatever result you want, and then you can just go with that. Then adding crank also, that even exaggerates that, and it intensifies and amplifies that noise. But the difference between the freeze and the crank is that the crank tends to bring it down, as you can see from here. It's adding the noise but now pushing the tip of this guy down, which you can see here, and which is not the case for freeze. Freeze pushes but not too intense like kink. All right, so for the kink, I would just reduce that percentage 20%. We don't want that to be too much. All right, so now that we have that, then we can now decide, say maybe we want to start cranking the, what's it called, cranking this down. So we can come to this air object and the guide, we can bring this down to, like, let's say 5 to reduce that. And also I feel the wave is kind of too much, so I can come back to the wave and reduce the effect. So let's say 10%, just a little bit. and we can still come back to this and bring this down to like let's say 3. All right, so let's bring this to like, let's say 400 by 400. I just want to have a subtle kind of feel to this. So you can bring the kink up so that it pushes this down even more. I think we can still go with 50, and for the freaks we have 50 before, so let's try 70, and that's that. Okay, so we can now introduce clump to that. So that's just the last stuff. So before we even start introducing that clump, if I go to my camera, you can see that we are beginning to see this hair. But if I come to this hair object and I increase this to like, let's say 500, I'll start to see some of this guy here. But then we can come back here and reduce this to like 1. We just really want a few of this. We don't want it, unlike other tutorials or other kind of objects where you have a whole lot of hair here up to like 5,000. We really don't need that, because you notice. So what we're trying to simulate is that we want some parts of it's more like loosed parts. Not every part will be loosed, so just a few parts will be kind of loosed. So I can go away with like 500, even if not too much. So you can see some here and there, and just to add a little bit of detail to that section. So maybe I will come here and make this so let's try 300 just to reduce that. And I feel that all this detail is kind of too much, so we can still come back, go to the wave and reduce this wave effect. So we can come to 200 by 200. All right, so I'm beginning to like what I have here, and maybe we can push the kink even more. So if I come to this kink and I push this way up here, so you are seeing the feedback of what I'm going to get at the end of all the results. So if I bring this to this side, I can just have a sense of what this is going to be like. So you can see changing this will push some of those things up, and that's what I'm actually looking for. And then for the freeze, let's see if we do the same thing. All right, so this is pretty much what I'm looking for. Okay, so if I come to this area, I think we can still up the count. So let's go back to that 500 and let's see. I think 800 is really too much. I think we just go with 500. And then once we are done with that, that's pretty much everything we want. We can now go back to the color. So the color, you want to make sure that your color is close to this particular texture you are using here, so which is more of a greenish feel. So I actually do not need okay, so I can actually tint the tip. So I'll come to that greenish color, and maybe I can sample this just to have a good start. So once I have this done, I can click this out first and come here, click another and double click, and just what I need for the tip is just to increase this add brightness to this, just so it gives difference from here to here. You know, once light hits the tip, kind of simulates bright effect. So once I have that done, the next thing is let's just render this and see what we get to have. And then once we are happy with what we have, then we can go and do a final render. So this is pretty much what I added in my course. Like I said, it's just the bonus that I adding all these details in the fabric object, and then you can have those things. You can see from here, I'm having a little bit of hair here, and I feel it's really two things here. It's too thick and also too long. So what I need to do is come back to this hair object, go to the thickness. You can bring this thickness way down to like maybe 0.02, 0.02. We really want this to be thin, not too thick, just a little bit of a detail, not too intense. So let's see what we have. I think this is fine. Yeah, I'm liking this. This is fine. Then what I could just go and do now is to look at the height or the length of this hair. So we can just come here, change the length of the guide. So like 0. Can we go to half of that? I think it's 0.6, a little bit more than half of what we have at the moment. And that will add that detail and the little strands of hair coming out from the chair and the cushion, so you can already see. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop this render, and maybe I can add counts to this. I'll stop this render, then I'm going to do a high resolution render, and then I'll be back to show you the output, and then we can look at that together. All right, so do wait for me while I do that. All right, guys, so this is, I had to stop this at 13 minutes, so just to show you, so you can see if you look at it at a very far distance, you don't really see much, but you can, if you look really, you can start seeing the little strand details, and if you zoom into it, you can start to see that those details are actually there. You can see, so this just forms a little bit of adding detail into your craft, so that it doesn't really look too CG created, and also whatnot. So this is just what I wanted to share, and also, like I said, this is just a redesign of one of the lessons from my course online, Woodwork and Furniture Design with Cinema 4D. So I would implore you guys to just check the link in the description to see and get the full course and how I modeled my furniture. I have a stylized furniture that I modeled and every other thing, starting from reference, sourcing for references, and many other things. So it's really a good course, and I feel that you will learn a lot from. So once more, do have a wonderful day, and God bless you. Bye.